Hello, everybody, and welcome into episode number 4 of the Vultures Row podcast. I'm your host, Joey Bonsanti, and I'm joined, as always, by my two wonderful co-hosts, Pat Winters and Tony Vegas. Tony, I'll start with you today. How you doing?
Doing good, Joey. It's once again we're just going into this free agency period. Not a lot's going on. We've seen a few depth moves, low level free agency signings. Obviously, not what a lot of us expected, um, but it is what it is, and we're here to discuss it. So, looking forward to it.
Pat?
I'm good. I think for me, it's really onto the draft, right? Free agency's pretty much over at this point. I mean, the first wave of it. I think, after the draft, maybe we'll get a couple more moves prior, but I doubt it. But after the draft is when you'll start to see a little bit more free agency signings. But for me, it's just we're just about a month out, maybe a little bit, 5 weeks. So it's full on for the draft for me. Super excited.
Yeah, we've pretty much hit a brick wall with free agency at this point. I know I've seen a lot of fans that are unhappy with how things have unfolded. I've been pretty patient with things. I know you guys have been kind of on the same page as me. But it seems like they have a plan. They have a set plan going into this thing. They wanted to get low bargain deals. Very young, it seems. Anyone from the ages of like 25 to 28 is who they've been targeting. But like you said, Pat, we're moving on to the draft now. So with that being said, and I didn't even tell you guys what we had on tap today. We're doing mocks. We're doing 3 round mocks. So before we get into that, what are the biggest holes on this team right now heading into the draft after the free agency period? Since I threw it to Tony first, I'll start with Pat on this question.
Well, it's really pick your poison, right? I think obviously it's wide receiver, right tackle, defensive line, and tight end. It's just really a matter of what you value and what you think is the biggest need. But I think you could say that all four of those are pretty glaring needs. I mean, you can make another case that they need another safety. Outside of Sherwood and Quincy, they could use another linebacker. So there's some holes, but the high priority is probably those four positions. Me personally, I really want them to draft a right tackle at 7. I just feel that it would be a great thing for them if they can get a Membu or even a Will Campbell and really make the O line elite with the way that they're going to probably run the offense this year, and to give Fields the best chance to really see what he's got. I would just really like to see them address right tackle, because right now it's slim pickings in free agency, and it's if they don't address it in the first round, it's going to be a really big question mark to me.
How about you, Tony?
I really agree with Pat's point, and I made that pretty clear on Twitter as well. You never find offensive linemen in free agency. If they hit free agency, something's wrong with them, right? I mean, it's very rare that a team will let a good offensive lineman go, and when they do, they get paid ginormous money. So I would agree. I'm of the mindset that they want to build this thing like the Lions did, have an elite offensive line and run the shit out of the football. That's how I would play this, but. It does, you never really know. I mean, obviously Membu's the target. The Patriots, like it's looking like they might want to take him at 4. So we're just going to have to see how the board falls. But I completely agree. I mean, our receiver room is terrifying. Our receiver 2 right now is Tyler Johnson, which in an ideal world, I mean, he's what, a receiver 4, receiver 5 maybe. So that's obviously scary. They addressed defensive tackle a little bit with the signing of Derek Nottie. He's a big boy, and that's something I really liked. He didn't get a ton of snaps in Kansas City, but obviously there's going to be a good opportunity for him to play meaningful snaps here and eat up some blocks next to Quinnen Williams. Far from complete that defensive line group though. And then tight end. I mean, tight end one's Jeremy Ruckert. So they're going into this draft with some really, really glaring holes, and it almost adds some predictability or unpredictability, I should say, because you don't know which direction they're going to go. Those positions are huge needs. They need to be addressed, and it's going to be really, really interesting to see how Darren Muji attacks, this draft. It's a huge one for him. Obviously, they went conservative in free agency, which I really don't hate. But yeah, they address some needs, and there's some that are just almost alarming, I would say.
Yeah, and you guys touched on most of it, but you start to go down the line of offensive line, and I've talked about it a lot. With we're going to have 4 of the 5 positions pretty much set in stone for next season. And that's why a lot of people are talking about taking Membu at 7 or a Will Campbell or tackle at some point to really bolster the offensive line and finish it up. The one thing about the tackle position that really does bother me, and I guess it shouldn't matter, but is how all of these offensive linemen that we have outside of Simpson are pretty much like first or second round picks. And I feel like it is annoying to fill your offensive line up with first and second round picks when a lot of other teams find starting quality offensive linemen in the third, fourth round sometimes. So that's a little frustrating. But right now I prefer Membu at 7. But like you said, like there's really no wrong way. I think that tight end, like the 4 positions that you said, tight end, interior defensive line, tackle, and wide receiver are going to be the glaring holes on this team. It's just a matter of where they're going to go. So we should just hop right into the mock drafts. Pat, what were you going to say?
I was going to say to counter that a little bit, right? If you look where Aaron Glenn came from in Detroit, right? Their offensive line is pretty littered with first round linemen. I mean, Taylor Decker, he's been there forever. Penei Sewell, we don't have to talk about him, right? I just think that if they're going to take, they didn't sign anybody from Detroit, really. They didn't sign anybody from Detroit, actually, in free agency. But if he's going to try and bring that style over, I just think that having that mauling offensive, look at the best teams in the league, right? The Eagles have the best O-line in the league, and Detroit, one of the best. That's their bread and butter. They live and die by that O-line. So I just think if they were to, I would just love to have an elite O-line to start this regime going forward.
Yeah, I'm definitely not disagreeing with you. It was more of like a devil's advocate type thing. Like, yeah. I do find it a little annoying though that we can never find any. And I'm hoping that this changes with this regime where we find guys on maybe like a 5th round pick that turns into a starter. And we have had our fair share of undrafted free agents that have turned into starters on this team. That I will say, I'll give it to Douglas and the previous regime. But this one, I'm really hoping that they could fill out the drafts more and get starting caliber players past the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd rounds. With that being said, it is officially mock draft season. So we are going to do a 3-round mock today between us 3, obviously, and just kind of go through our picks. We could do Pat, Tony, me. We could do me, whatever you want to do, Pat. We could start with you, and then we'll go from there.
All right, cool. So my mock, it went Cam to the Titans, Abdul to the Browns, Travis Hunter to the Giants, and the surprise, I guess I would say, was Membu went 4th to the Patriots. So Membu was obviously off the board for me, which is personally my favorite choice at 7 if he's there. If not, though, I think Tyler Warren's the pick for me here, and it's what I think the Jets will ultimately do as well. I thought about Will Campbell here. I thought about Tet, who is growing on me. He's been a bit of a seesaw with me, but now I wouldn't mind him at 7 again. But I just think Tyler Warren's the safest instant impact player for what the Jets need right now. He's going to play the entire position. He's going to be a factor in the run and the pass game. He's most likely going to be 2nd in targets behind Garrett Wilson on the team. He's got elite size, elite ball skills, and toughness to win contested catches. One scouting report I saw that I just really thought hit the nail on the head was that he plays with the best player on the field type of mentality, which when you watch him on tape this past season is just really true. He lines up all over the field. He lines up in the backfield. He lines up a quarterback. He just dominates everything that he does. So in a league where an elite tight end goes a long way, I just think this is the safest pick as you can make.
I love that. Tony, what do you got at number 7?
Yeah, my board fell actually the same way as Pat. Membu went number 4, which it's scaring me because that seems increasingly likely, and he's probably my number 1 choice. But for the sake of diversity, I went with Tet McMillan at 7. Like I said, I mean, the receiver room is almost barren of talent outside of Garrett Wilson. And he offers a different skill set, right? You're not getting a similar player to be your wide receiver too. It's really the thunder to Garrett Wilson's lightning. Obviously, the speed isn't probably like elite, but it's not really what you expect with a 6'5" receiver. I would compare him to a guy like Drake London, who has that like basketball mentality. He can go up, get the ball, possession receiver. Obviously, you see this Matthew Golden hype. I'm not buying it. He's wide receiver 1 for me, Tet McMillan. And just with the sheer need, obviously it's not ideal to be in a situation where you have to draft because the position is just so weak. But I mean, it's certainly looking like it's going to turn out that way right now. And you can't have Tyler Johnson as wide receiver 2. You need somebody else. So I figured why not nip that in the bud with a really, really good receiver talent. And I think we've seen a little bit of prospect fatigue with Tet. I mean, he's been really, really good for 2 years now, and for some reason the hype's dying down, but I'm not buying it. I think he would be a good pick at 7, and that's who I ultimately ended up going with.
And the last receiver to a stat that I saw earlier to run a 4.5 plus that was picked in the top 15 was Mike Evans. And he was actually picked at the number 7 spot, which I find
Oh,
to be very funny. So if you're a big believer in that kind of weird number stuff, then that's a good one for you.
You know, just to touch on Tet a little bit more, right? And obviously Mike Evans is a comp, but like, you know, you're talking about a Hall of Famer there, but that would be the ceiling. But I just think it's really scary to think. It just feels like Tet, in a way, is our only hope to having a decent receiver room like next year right now. Just given the options available and, you know, realistic options that we might that are in front of us, and that just it scares me more by the day.
Yeah, I agree. And my next pick here is, I mean, after Tony talked about Tet, it makes me almost wish I took Tet. But in my mock draft situation at 7, I had the choice between Warren, Membu, and Tet. And like Tony said, for the sake of diversity and for my own wants and needs, I did take Armand Membu, who, again, I had to do about 5 or 6 mock drafts for him not to be picked to the Patriots. That's a little scary to me because that's becoming more and more likely, I think, him rising the boards as the top tackle in this draft. But to get to the point here, I'm going to read off a few stats. First off, from the combine. I mean, 330 pounds running a 4.91 is absolutely diabolical. I mean, that's insane athleticism.
yeah.
You're not going to see much from someone who weighs 330 pounds. In his 2024 season as a right tackle at Missouri, he allowed 0 sacks, 0 quarterback hits, and 8 total pressures on 411 pass blocking snaps. I mean, what that would do for the Jets offensive line after having 4 starters already set in place would be massive. I love how he is just essentially a plug and play right tackle, right? Like, you're drafting this guy and now your offensive line is done. I mean, you could say it might be done for the next 6-7 years potentially with how many young guys we have on the offensive line. So I love that as well. I love that he's young. He's 21 years old. He did shoot up the draft boards. I think probably within the last couple months. I think before December, he wasn't even projected as a first round pick. That's pretty much what I read. A lot of it was kind of surrounded around his smaller build. And I guess just the bigger complaint with him is that his ability, and I read this a lot, is to hold blocks in that zone run scheme that they ran at Mizzou. So that's a little bit concerning, but ultimately I think this would be a home run pick at number 7.
Yeah, and
The
I feel
key,
like the media is just catching up, right, on the hype with Membu. He should have been in this discussion the entire time, and it works out perfectly for us because he's not a left tackle; he's a right tackle. And like you said, man, he would be plug and play. I disagree with you to a degree. I think like Simpson's going to be a free agent after next year. You hope to re-sign him based off of how he performed. AVT is obviously a question mark. If he gets hurt this year, I mean, there's no shot in hell you re-sign him. But to be able to have a core 3 of Membu, Fashanu, and Titman, you could build around that, and you could fill in the guard slots and work around that. That's no issue. So I totally agree. This would be my number 1 pick, and I think that's a consensus for us 3. And it's a consensus amongst Jets Twitter right now. So that's kind of my thoughts.
the key, it seems like the key with Membu being there or not is Shador Sanders, actually, because
Mhm.
if
Definitely.
Shador is going to go to Cleveland or the Giants, right? And, you know, based on what you hear and read, now he might, you know, I don't know if the fall's there anymore. Now it seems like the Giants might take him. The Giants look more and more every day like they're not almost going to have a choice, right?
Yeah.
So if he goes before the Patriots pick, meaning Shador, that means that we're probably going to see Travis Hunter in our division. One of Travis or Abdul Carter in our division, you know, pick your poison. But the flip side is Membu probably falls to 7 if I was a guessing man today.
Mm-hmm.
But if Shador doesn't go, then then the slide happens that, you know, post-combine, all that chatter was happening. then I would think that if the Patriots are in a position where Hunter or Carter they are not there for them, Membu probably feels like the safe choice for them there to protect Drake May, right? I mean,
You would
I'm not
hope it's
going
Will
to.
Campbell. I would think
Yeah,
they need. I think their offensive line's trash, so you would hope it's Will Campbell because he's more of a guard, I think. But
don't rule Ted out either. I mean, Mike Vrabel came out and said that he really wants a big X receiver for Drake May. He needs that guy. He needs a number one receiver. So I wouldn't rule that out either. But I just think right now the key, if we're this Armand Membu podcast, worship podcast that we're coming into right now, light some candles for a prayer circle for Shador Sanders then.
God, what I would do for the fourth pick right now. So to go off of the snake order that I have, I, with the 42 pick, am going to take Xavier Watts out of Notre Dame, safety. I think that this would just be, and I don't know who was listening, but this was during one of the YouTube lives that we did probably about a month and a half ago. But I talked a lot about Branch from Detroit's defense and how Glenn liked to use him as a chess piece and line him up all over the field. I think that I saw a lot of similarities with Watts at Notre Dame. They played him at deep safety, 465 snaps, in the slot 175, and in the box 306. So they like to put him around the field a lot and use him as that quote unquote chess piece. I just feel like this is another guy where I feel like he could really probably start from day one. Obviously, he's getting picked in round 2. I think that he has a really good chance to excel in that position. And from what I read, a lot of great instincts. He has the nose for the ball. He is more of like that ball hawking safety, which I would love to see the Jets have a guy who could, have a few interceptions a year, 4 or 5 interceptions a year. I don't think we see too many picks by one particular player on our defense. So I would love Xavier Watts at this 42 pick.
Just Ashton Davis once a year.
Yeah, exactly.
And Eccles twice in one game every year
Both
for some
gone,
reason.
though, but both gone.
Jordan Whitehead 3 times in one game.
Yeah. No, I like that pick, Joey, a lot. I'm Operation Get Tony Adams, fellow Tony, but I'm Operation Get him off the field. So I wouldn't hate that. And I think Andre Cisco, he's a nasty enough player where you can play him in the box a little bit, and you'd have a versatile safety duo, which I think we haven't seen since the days of Marcus May and Jamal Adams. Picks 7 and second round pick, which is insane. Following the snake draft here, I ended up going with Shamar Turner, not Shamar Stewart, Shamar Turner. Like I said, this is one of those needs, and at this point, we are not a team that has the luxury of just taking BPA. At the very least, this player, we can't draft backups right now. I think we're drafting for starters, which obviously isn't ideal, but that's where we are. And we need a player next to Quinnen Williams that can at least be somewhat dynamic. Obviously, we took a swing at Javon Kinlaw last year, and he ended up being one of the worst players I've ever seen on a football field. I think that was getting paid that much money and somehow got a bigger deal. But Shamar Turner, very impressive size. He's 6'4", 300 pounds, really, really athletic, has a great first step. And he offers that dynamic interior defensive lineman that we've been looking to put next to our $25 million defensive tackle in Quinnen Williams. He would open up a lot for him. Obviously, he has some holes in his game, right? He needs to improve a little bit in the pass rush, but that's, again, what Quinnen Williams offers. He can be a 10-sack player. So you kind of have Noddy to eat up the blocks, be the really fat guy to be the team player and eat up blocks for guys like Turner and Quinnen on the inside. And he's really versatile. One thing I was reading up a lot on him, you can play him really anywhere on the defensive line. And when Joe Douglas weirdly decided to trade John Franklin Myers for a bag of peanuts, we obviously felt that. We all watching those games, we felt that.
That's a great comp for him, Tony.
I was just reading it. I was like, this sounds like JFM. And that's a really critical piece on a defense. When the trade happened, a lot of us were like, okay, that kind of sucks. But I mean, our run defense was horrific without JFM. And I think he would do a really nice job of filling that role and has a lot of upside for a second round D tackle.
I'm really curious to see, because they've signed 3 D tackles now, if they're just going to go with the strategy of rotating those guys, or and again, we have Leonard Taylor, right, who has shown
I like
a lot
him,
of
by the way.
upside. Are they banking on him taking a step and they're going to rotate these guys in and they're really going to have Namdi and Taylor be it, or are we going into the draft, are they going to value a D tackle next to Quinnen? It's going to be really interesting going forward. So when I run my mocks every time at 42, I just keep thinking about this scenario that where we stand today and where we talked about, and that's these 4 glaring holes so that we talk about, right? It's tight end, wide receiver, interior D-line, and right tackle. They really need starters, right? And they need them at all these positions. And it's too tough to ask them to hit on all these picks that they currently have with these positions, right? So, and I just don't love who's on the board for them at 42. There's a drop-off at tackle. There's wide receivers like Jack Beck and Eli Anamayor from Stanford on the board. I like Beck, but I just going down the round 2 wide receiver route for me. We've just done it too many times to comfortably take one at 42. I'd rather address it later and then try to get another veteran. If one of the wide receivers dropped, like let's say Trey Harris or even like Luther Burden or something like that, if we see a wide, one of those late first round receivers drop, absolutely, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So if Tyleek Williams is there, I would take him, but he wasn't in this scenario. So my move was to just trade down. And I didn't just do a random trade down. I tried to apply some logic to it. So because, we're always talking about, trading down is great no matter where it is, but you need somebody to do it, right? So I traded with Denver, who is probably a little bit more keen to adding a wide receiver to the room for Bo Nix. So I traded 42 for 51 and 85. So we picked up an extra third. Do I think they do this in real life? It'd be close. It seems like a lopsided trade from the Jets, but PFF accepted the trade on the first try. So, fuck it. PFF is the way to go, right? So, so again, there's a dip at tackle, but now I'm at 51. And Ariante Ursi is there from Minnesota for me. And I felt like that was a really good pick here. He was a 3-year starter at left tackle in Minnesota. He's got great size at 6'6", 330. He has long arms. His athleticism is there. He's ran the 5.01 at the 40 at the combine with a 1.75 10-yard split, which is really damn good. He was Big Ten All-Lineman of the Year this year, all Big Ten this past year as well. Reading into him, his weakness is that he plays with a little bad posture and some knee bend, which to me can just be fixed with coaching. So given his starting experience and his athleticism, I think that you can start him at right tackle on day one. And in my scenario, I have him being complemented with Tyler Warren, right? So you can run a lot of 12 personnel packages here and you can get by this season on the right side. So that's where I, get that right tackle that we've just been talking about this whole pod. And let's roll.
I'm liking the way this draft's shaping out for you, Pat. By the way. It's back to you, Tony, right? Or did I mess up the order?
It is you.
Is it
It's me. All right, let's do me.
I'm pretty sure it's you.
I am on the clock. Okay, so we still need a tackle in my scenario. We took a pass catcher. We took an interior defensive lineman. And this is somebody that's been mocked a lot to the Jets amongst content creators that I've read. I went with Big Ozzie Trapillo, to fill in that right tackle role. Can he start on day one? I couldn't fucking tell you. Otherwise, I'd be a GM. But, I mean, he certainly is good value here. He's absolutely massive. He's 6'8", 300-plus pounds. And I was reading up on him, and I could almost tell you his kind of what's the word I'm looking for?
Makeup.
His comp / makeup without even watching any of the tape. But 6'8", 300. Weakness, what do you guys think? You think he has trouble with his balance. He's too tall. He's got to get the pad leverage, right? So that's one of his weaknesses. But he's a really good pass protector. His size obviously offers huge upside in the run game. And this is just one of those things where he can play that. You could be your developmental tackle. And we haven't hit on a starting offensive lineman, like Joey said earlier, and in not the first round, in what feels like, I couldn't even tell you. Okay, but he's a second-round pick. He was the number 1 center in that class. Right. I mean, it's just been Brandon Shell. It's been Carter Warren, Max Mitchell.
Oh, yeah. Tackles for sure.
Tackles we just don't hit on. I'm taking a swing on this kid. I think he's got, serious talent and upside. And, obviously we have Okorafor to kind of – it's not like you need to throw him in right away. I mean, Okorafor started for 5 years in Pittsburgh, so –
You
you
got to
kind of
throw him
have
in
that.
right away, though. If you're taking a kid at 42, right, like that position has to be a starter this year.
Well, no, this is third round.
Oh shit! I'm
This
sorry.
is
I think
72.
I think I legitimately screwed up the order. Whatever, it doesn't matter.
My
You know
bad.
what? It is what it is. But I'm taking my right
All
tackle
right,
here.
fair enough. Fair enough. That's
I
fine.
think it's a developmental tackle. It's totally fair. He doesn't have to start on day one. If he does, great, because that means he beat out a 5-year starter, veteran, 28-year-old in Pittsburgh, and that's awesome. That we have a super young starting offensive line. So Ozzy, you're my pick at 72, my friend.
Ozzy Trapilo is like, I feel like New York Jets Twitter and content creators' favorite pick in the third round so far, just based on what I've
that
seen.
means we won't pick him.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Tony. You picked Shamar Turner at 42. I'm an idiot. My bad.
Mhm.
All good. All right, so we are moving on to my third round pick, and then we'll wrap it up with Pat, since I screwed up the order, I think. Anyways, in my scenario, I took Membu and Watts, so I went tackle safety. And at this point, you might be saying, Joey, what the hell are you doing? We still don't have any wide receivers. No, I'm not taking a wide receiver, but I am taking tight end Mason Taylor, son of former Hall of Famer, Jets Hall of Famer, Jason Taylor. Not actually a Jet, more of a Dolphin, but I will count that. And I'm taking Mason Taylor because of his pass catching upside. Pretty much everything that I've read and I've seen on Mason Taylor is that he's a very polished pass catcher, but he struggles in the run game a lot. Like he's almost like pretty much cannot block in the run game, so he's useless. I think they lined him up outside at wide receiver for most of his snaps. I think I did read something on how he had one of the best tight end receiving seasons in Miami history. So that seems pretty good. I do like his ability. Like I've seen tape on him. His ability to track deep balls, his ability to kind of go up and get that jump ball in the red zone. I love that. Does it fix the wide receiver problem? No, but I think it adds a very polished pass catcher to the mix and something that Justin Fields can look to as a safety blanket, if you will.
I love that, Joey. You might have my favorite draft out of us three so far. I think I'm totally with you. I think that would be a great pick. And you had like Jeremy Ruckert sucks, but he can at least block. And you'd hope they get another guy as a camp body, a blocking tight end. I think that's a really good pick.
I would love Mason Taylor.
Yeah.
That would be a home run. So I have 2 third-round picks because I traded Den. So right now I love where my offense is at. I have Tyler Warren and I have the Minnesota right tackle, right? So I got 2 maulers in the trenches and I picked up an extra third to work with. So at 73, I'm going back to the trenches, but I'm going on the defense. I'm taking Jordan Phillips from Maryland. I honestly think I don't want to say it's a reach. It's just that he's really purely a run-stuffing D tackle with not a lot of upside as a pass rusher. So I think, could you get somebody like that a little bit later? Sure. But with where the D-line is at, I know, like I said, they made 3 signings, but I'm trying to hit on some starters. And Phillips has a really high floor as a gap control player, and it's significant upside thanks to his power, his leverage, and agility. So get a young body on the D-line. Hopefully it pans out next to Quinnen. At the worst case, he's a great run stuffer, which, again, can complement Quinnen. And then at 85, I am finally going to add a weapon, not, add a skill position other than tight end, right? So I might get a little slack for this one for the deep draft gurus, but at 85, I'm just trying to hit on a player with some upside, right? That can do something for us. So Savion Williams from wide receiver from TCU. I don't know if you guys have watched him at all. I actually did get to watch him a little bit this season. He's a do-it-all player. He's kind of like Malachi Corley, which Jet fans are going to say, right? But number one, let's see what Malachi does this year. Number two, at this point, why not just add another versatile weapon? Hopefully they use him correctly, right? So Savion plays all over the field. He had 6 receiving touchdowns last year. He had 6 rushing touchdowns last year. He also had a passing touchdown. This is another hope that you get Deebo Samuel type of pick, which I know they tried for in Malachi, but with the way the offense is going to be so run-oriented, I just think why not get another crack at a guy that you could put the ball in his hands in so many different ways, and he can also be a special teams ace and elite kick returner, probably at the worst. So for me, I feel like I got an extra pick at, after I got at 42, I traded down. I picked up an extra pick for the value that I just didn't think was there. I got 2 players I'm projecting to start next year. I got a high floor rotational run stuffer, and I got a dart throw at wide receiver with some real upside, in my opinion. So
when we were planning for this episode this week, as we do, we talk about what we're gonna talk about, and Pat said, "Let's do a 3 round mock draft." And of course, he's the guy that comes away with 4 picks in his mock draft. So
Hey,
typical.
we didn't lay out the rules not to trade. You got to trade down if you can, man.
We didn't, but
So
I do really, going back to
round three, still in round three.
you're
Yeah.
right. I'll give it to you. But I will say, Tony said he liked my draft. I really like Pat's first 2 picks, how he goes tight end and he grabs a tackle. Because you think about, we still need that right tackle, but we also, we haven't had a tight end, like a really
Never.
good tight end since like Dustin Keller, and even he was pretty underwhelming for
Yeah.
where he was picked. I would love to see like a Tyler Warren and then grab another tackle to like, you're getting a starter at tackle probably in round 2, and then getting a stud in Tyler Warren. So I really like those first 2 picks by you, Pat.
Yeah, I think trading down would be pretty ideal. I mean, with the needs that we all are very clear that are pretty glaring, trading down is ideal, but it takes 2 to tango. I love how people are like, well, just trade down if you don't like anybody. And it's like, okay, I mean, there's not a quarterback that's probably going to be there at 7 unless Shador falls. And I mean, nobody's trading up for a tight end in Tyler Warren, or they're just going to sit in their
Not in
draft
this class. It's too
not
deep,
in this
right?
class.
So,
It makes no sense. So they're going to pick at 7, and we'll see who that ends up being. Fingers crossed, it's Membu. But I there's not a lot of picks I'm mad at, right? I mean, if we walk away with Warren, Tet, Membu, Mason Graham, I'm not going to be like, oh fuck, like they screwed this whole thing up. This is a failure. It's not like that because there's not enough blue chip players, and like it's not a great draft class. So you kind of just throw your dart, whoever you're most confident in, and you just hope it works out.
I think an important thing to note too is, again, there's still, free agency is dulled down now, but that after the draft, there's going to be veteran signings, and
Mhm.
there are veteran receivers out there that, depending on which way the Jets go in the draft, let's just run my scenario, for instance, right? People are going to walk away from that draft being like, we have no receivers, right? Okay, well, after that, they're probably going to keep Lazard, it looks like, in that, like as
Yeah.
Antoine said, and the way things are trending. Okay, is he the best wide receiver too? No. Can he be out there? Yes. Stephon Diggs is still out there.
Yeah,
Right.
I think Keenan Allen.
There are, Keenan Allen's still out there. Those are guys that I could see them after the draft, maybe just getting a veteran receiver to comp, because look, I think they all know they can't roll out just Garrett Wilson. And even let's just say Tyler Warren, like they need a good wide receiver too next Garrett. Otherwise, he's just going to get gobbled up every play. So, I know we've been stressing it the whole time, but patience. The offseason is still super early.
And they're going to be running the shit out of the ball. Don't forget that. Like, it's going to be crucial that whatever wide receiver we do get, whether we keep Lazard, who can pass block, like we need some guy who we can throw out there. Run block, excuse me. Run block for the run onslaught that we should have in 2025. So I'm looking forward to that.
And the good thing is, like, I think you guys hit the nail on the head. Like, everybody at 7, barring I don't know who I'd really be mad with at 7 at the moment. I mean, like, for me, the one I would be mad at, and then I would convince myself, I would do a couple of beer segment on it, is Shamar Stewart.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say him.
Like, that's the one where I would just be pretty scared. But I would talk myself into it. But other than that, there's not a lot of people I'm going to be upset about at 7 at the moment.
Shamar Stewart's like the Mekhi Becton of defensive linemen. I'd say he's like solely traits, no production. He would be very, very scary. But again, in a draft like this, I'm not saying pick him, but in a draft like this, I wouldn't be like, oh my God, this is horrific if they take a huge swing. I mean, the guy's so athletic, he could end up being an absolute superstar, and you look like geniuses. It's just not a draft where there's like a bunch of safe picks. And I would argue the safest pick would probably be Tyler Warren. He's the best player at his position. He'll probably be there at 7. And if a gun were to my head right now, they're probably going to take him. They need a pass catcher, and he can fill that Sam Laporta role that they had in Detroit. Plus, I think he's a better player.
Yeah, we certainly will see. I agree with you. I wouldn't be mad with any of the 4 guys that you had listed earlier. With that being said, I think there's going to be plenty more mocks as we go and ramp up to the draft here. We don't have too much else here today. We're going to run through some questions that Tony had asked for. This is something we did last week, which I loved. There was amazing questions. This week it got a little inappropriate. So can we just tone it back?
Some drama. There's some drama going on Jets Twitter that we're not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. But
no. But I will start and read the ones that I can read here.
Go Rob Jake first, please. He DM'd me. He's been begging me to do. He's a best loyal fan we have.
I'll do a $1 episode and I'll answer the questions.
Okay, per Tony's request, we'll start with Rob Jake. Rob Jake asks, Clemens versus Boyd fight, who's winning?
So that's Chris Boyd, right? The Texans special teamer that pushed his coach.
Yeah,
now Jet.
Now yes. Jet. First of all, shout out Rob Jake. You're the GOAT. Second of all, Michael Clemens is probably kicking his ass. I mean, realistically, first of all, we've been talking about Michael Clemens far too much on this show, and it needs to stop. I think this is the last one we're doing. Michael Clemens is kicking his ass. I think he's in that 2%, 1% of the population where he can probably beat the shit out of anybody.
Pat?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going straight sheer size here. I mean, I'm probably saying, like I said, I feel like I said this a long time about Clemens. Like, Clemens just feels like a caged animal that's just holding it all in until Sunday. Like, I just feel like he's pissed off all week, or he's like sitting in a dark room really upset, and then he just tries to unleash on Sunday, and it just leads to a lot of undisciplined things. But so yeah, I wouldn't want to run down the street and see Michael Clemens, regardless of who I am.
Yes, I'll answer Clemens as well. And just thought we were done with Michael Clemens questions, but no, we have another one. No. Why from Jet Up? Why the living shit is Michael Clemens still on the roster?
Yo, come on. We just said we're done. I don't know. He needs to be cut. He's probably going to be cut.
Yes, I wouldn't stress about it too much.
I wouldn't stress about it.
Imagine he's on. I don't know, dude. I feel like he's like inevitable. Like he's gonna be on the week one roster. Just like they're gonna kick him inside or something and say he's been playing the wrong position.
All roads lead back to Michael Clemens. I mean, this is just what we do now.
I think
I like the pick by Cisco question.
Yeah.
Okay. Just I didn't see that question yet, but I think if we do. If he makes the roster by the start of the season, we have to do a Michael Clemens jersey giveaway.
Pat has a jersey of Michael Clemens.
I'll
he has a black Michael Clemens jersey.
I'm not even kidding. I had no idea that he did. But
insane, the dumbest purchase I've ever seen. But
please, because you don't have dumb purchase jerseys.
Yeah, Squidward number 54. Would you rather deal? This comes from Picked by Cisco. Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't realize what you were saying, Pat. Would you rather deal with 5 years of Ulbrich coaching or 5 years of Tim Boyle at QB? I'm sorry, I want to answer this one first. I think this is a very easy answer, and it's easily 5 years of Ulbrich at coach. It's not even close. We could somehow figure out something. Tim Boyle at quarterback would just. I mean, I don't even know if I watch every Jets game. I don't know if I'd be able to watch, honestly.
I think it's an interest. I think it's more interesting than you think.
Because
I agree.
Jeff Ulbrich had one of the most talented rosters on paper last season, and he was goddamn horrific, man. He's a terrible head coach. I'm sure he's a great guy, but he is not a good head coach, and he's honestly a pretty questionable defensive coordinator. I think we gave him really loaded defenses during his time here, and it allowed him to kind of shine a little bit. Goddamn. I mean, obviously, I'm going with Jeff Ulbrich for 5 years. Tim Boyle is horrific. Do you disagree?
I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
Because if you really think about this, right? If Tim Boyle's your quarterback, you're probably going to be the worst team in the league, right? Like all 5 years.
Right. I see where you're going with this. Yes.
Okay. So then you're probably going to get the number one pick for 5 years, right? So if you're guaranteed to start him for 5 years, you take 5 really good position players, and then the 5th year, you take the quarterback.
Or you take Arch or whoever, you sit him for 4 years. Yeah. And you
you sit him behind Tim Boyle.
You let him learn behind Tim Boyle, and then he's horrible.
That's why I'm saying you just wait till Tim Boyle has to go, and then you still have the number one pick, and you take the quarterback. So, if you're telling me like 5 more years of sucking to get a franchise quarterback, like I probably would sign up for it.
What is 5 more years, right? What the hell's 5 more years?
No, that's what I'm saying. What's 5 more years? We've been going
5
to 14.
years. Are you nuts?
Yeah, I'm just saying, if I'm really hedging it,
It would really give Tim Boyle his shot, too. I mean, what if he develops?
Yeah, what if he's the guy?
What if Tim Boyle ends up being the guy?
What quarterback gets just 5 years of
guaranteed? And he has no worries. He can go out there, throw 5 picks. He's like, I'm going to be fucking starting next game.
Build the team around Boyle.
Yeah.
From Chris Shaver, do you think the Jets are going to draft a tight end in the first round or trade for one? I would say draft.
Um,
Probably draft.
Draft,
In that
draft.
scenario, draft.
First round though, I like I said, gun to my head, Tyler Warren's the pick. So I think it's far more likely that they're going to draft Tyler Warren than trade for this guy's. He's probably thinking of Michael Mayer.
Mhm.
I don't foresee that happening, but I would welcome it. But as of right now, I think there's a higher shot of us drafting Tyler Warren than trading for Michael Mayer.
This is a great question coming from our good friend JT at Stacking Dollars. Go follow our buddy. Top 3 tailgate foods. Since
No.
Pat has one of the best tailgates at MetLife, Pat, we'll start with you.
Oh, okay. That's a good one. Well, steak. I mean, if you're bringing steak to the tailgate, that's always a plus. That's a staple at ours, right? Love it.
The blue cheese too, the steak and blue
the
cheese.
award-winning sauce, right? That we make there. I'm not gonna, divulge into it. Come by the tailgate if you want to come try it. Number 2, probably sausage. Like split hot Italian sausage would be great. And then again, third, hot dogs and hamburgers probably, right?
Yeah, I agree with Pat.
For me, I mean, does Heineken count? I mean,
that's
count
we
food?
do eat Heinekens at your.
For me, it's just Heineken steak for 3 hours, which is
I-
great.
I have
Sunday
a
ritual.
I have one time I was at the tailgate and I didn't know Pat that well, and I asked him something, I forget what it was, and he was I don't want to he was under the influence and he just looked at me and walked away. Like
Doing my rounds.
you
He was eating Heinekens.
you certainly
Yeah.
did not you didn't even register a word I said. But Tony, go ahead.
I actually
listen. This is probably the Tim Boyle game or something.
I have another story. It was after one of our losses. I think it was like a rainy. It might have been that Patriots game.
Patriots won last year. Yeah.
And so Pat's tailgate's super cool. They have like this bus. It drives from Long Island and back. And we were on the way back. I try to open a Heineken with my mouth because for some reason we love doing it at your tailgate. And I end up biting the top of it off. And I'm sitting next to like my sister or something, and she looks at me like I have freaking 3 heads. She's like, "What's the matter with you?" And I'm like, "Well, I just watched Tim Boyle play for 4 quarters, so I think that's more concerning than me biting this Heineken." But it's the life we live as Jets fans.
We talked about like Tim Boyle way too much.
Tim Boyle,
Yeah,
Michael
this is-
Clemens. Let's talk about
Yeah.
Justin Fields and stuff. I mean,
we gotta stop doing that.
All right. Well, a lot of the rest of the questions are kind of just inappropriate and not really. We try to keep it somewhat. We should try to keep it somewhat PG here. So let's end it on that. I did see that we eclipsed 700 followers on Twitter, guys. I just want to say thank you so much for the support. Like Pat has mentioned in previous episodes, like we hadn't even dropped content. You guys are following us, so we appreciate it. And everyone who's listening, still go follow us on Twitter at NYJ_Vultures Row. We got something here. I'm really, really proud of everything that we've done and how you guys have responded to us. So it's been awesome. So I'll leave it at that. And if you guys have any closing thoughts, you can go ahead.
No, let's go. Draft season. Let's keep it going, boys. Thanks for all the support.
Yeah, thank you guys so much, and we're hitting a little bit of a dead period, but we're gonna keep it entertaining, and we'll give you something to chew on while
draft time. We're gonna
right. I mean. Yeah, we're going to get pretty deep into the draft. This is just the beginning, right? I mean, we're probably going to have scouting reports on players that will end up being fucking Buffalo Bills and all this stuff, but it's the fun of the game, right? This is my favorite time of the year.
And stay tuned for more good guests because we are in the works with some good guests here. So again, thank you, and we will see you next week for episode 5. Peace out. Go Jets.